Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This video was going to be something completely different. I was originally going to do like a Booktube's favourite books of 2020 video, and I've written like lots of like notes down, like making a notes of like every book that somebody mentioned in their favourite books of the year video. I was basically trying to see how often specific books got mentioned, and I was going to read those books, like to see what the most popular books of last year were. As I thought about the idea more, I was kind of overthinking it. I was like, I don't think this idea is that strong. So instead I've taken a bit from the like notes I've made, and so we're turning this into a hyped books reading vlog, and we're going to see if these two books I'm about to read are worth the hype. I say I'm about to read, I'm actually filming this intro like halfway through the second book I'm reading. That's beside the point. Firstly, I'm going to be reading The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This came up on a couple of people's favourite books of the year lists, and this won the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Fiction, which personally I was quite surprised about for two reasons mainly. First of all, I fully predicted that Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid was going to win that award. I haven't read that book yet and haven't read any of the books that were nominated actually, but I heard so much hype about that book and so many good things that I thought it was going to win. And secondly, at the time of the winners being announced, not many of my Goodreads friends had read this or even like added it to their TBR, so it was kind of on my radar but not really, and not a ton of people that I follow online, whether it be on Booktube or Bookstagram, were talking about this book either, so it was just something that slipped from my like awareness, I guess. But this book is about a woman called Nora Seed. She finds herself in the Midnight Library, which is like an area between life and death, and up until now her life has been full of misery and regret. She feels she has let everyone down, including herself, but things are about to change. The books in the Midnight Library enable Nora to live as if she had done things differently. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question: what is the best way to live? I have read from Matt Haig before, but only his non-fiction book Reasons to Stay Alive, which I really like. That book is all about mental health, and it seems like this book is going to be about very similar themes. Next is the book that by far came up the most. This book was mentioned by at least 5 or 6 booktubers on their like best books of the year lists, and that book is The Invisible Life of Addie Lavee by Schwab. You probably know what this book is about by now, but it's about a young girl, Addie Lavee, and she makes a deal with the devil where basically she's immortal, she can live forever, but nobody ever remembers her. But then after 300 years, a guy remembers her. Obviously this book has been really popular, but I have heard mixed things about it. I'm aware that this book was kind of incorrectly marketed to some people as a story of a girl falling in love with the devil. I've heard criticism from people of colour too that this book is very white and very Eurocentric, so that is something I'll be keeping in mind and be aware of as I'm reading it. I've never read anything from Schwab before. I know she's a very popular fantasy author of like Vicious and the Darker Shades of Magic series, so I'm looking forward to experiencing her writing, as that is like the universally agreed upon thing about this book, that the writing is top notch. So yeah, these are the 2 books I'm reading. Let's get on with the vlog and see if these books are worth the hype. Over halfway through the Midnight Library. I am really liking it actually. I'm really enjoying the writing style, I'm really enjoying the characters. Well, I guess there are obviously side characters, but we are mainly just hearing from our main character Nora. I'm feeling like a lot of sympathy for the situation because I'm very curious as to how this is going to end, because I feel like I'm already kind of gathering what the overall moral and lesson of this is. So from experiencing all these different alternate lives she could have had, she's kind of learning that there's basically going to be disappointment in all of them for like a variety of reasons. So I'm kind of sensing that's what she's going to learn from it, or what she has already learned. So I'm curious to see like what's going to happen in the last half of the book, how this is going to be wrapped up. So I've heard like the ending of the book is like quite emotional, or just this book in general is pretty sad. I mean, like, it is sad, especially the beginning when she's really low and depressed. What's interesting as well is that I have read like this type of book before. I have read 2 other kind of fabulism, magical realism books before, where the whole like concept and idea is that the main character has died for whatever reason, and from some kind of like magical device or whatever, they are revisiting their life, their past, and all the mistakes they've made. So like I've read The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, where basically an old man, he dies and there's 5 people he meets in heaven that are related to some like past mistakes he's made. I read this book a long time ago, so I can't 100% remember. I gave it like 3 stars, so it didn't really leave an impact on me, unfortunately. I've also read On the Other Side by Carrie Hope Fletcher, where basically the main character dies. Again, I can't remember why or how, I think just old age maybe, and they're basically in this like apartment, this like block of flats, and on one particular floor where she used to live, there are a bunch of doors, and behind each one of them is one particular part of her life, and she's basically revisiting them and like righting her wrongs in a way, and just making peace with what has happened in her life. I gave both of those books 3 stars, and you know, I read them a long time ago, so I can't 100% remember what I liked and disliked about them, but considering this book is like a very similar thing of like the main character dying, and it's like fabulous and magical realism where like in the in-between between life and death they get to revisit their past life or what could have been. All this to say that I am enjoying this book more than the other books that do a similar thing. I have about 130 pages left. I feel like I could finish this by today or either early tomorrow, so I'll next update you when I finish this book. Last night I finished reading The Midnight Library. I cried quite a lot, and I'm going to give this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I read this book at like the right time in my life, even though it did almost give me like an existential crisis multiple times. It's a really beautiful, emotional and inspiring book, as you might be able to tell by the amount of tabs I've put in this book. I really enjoyed like all the elements of this book. I loved the writing, the characters, the morals and the messages. I'd say as well this is quite a good book to recommend to people who perhaps don't read a lot. Say you've got a person in your life who doesn't read a lot of books and like they ask you for a recommendation, I feel like this will be quite a good book for like beginners, if you will. The writing style is accessible, and I feel like it's something that everybody can relate to in some way, and like no matter who you are, I think you could learn something from this book. I think I'm titling this video like, are these books worth the hype? Like most hyped Booktube books or something. So if we are answering the question whether these books are worth the hype, I would say that this one definitely is worth the hype. I would very much recommend it. So next we are going to be moving on to the one and the only The Invisible Life of Addie Lavee by V.E. Schwab. Probably the most loved book on Booktube last year. I'm very excited for this book. I'm also quite nervous, so we shall see how it goes. I'm now 112 pages into The Invisible Life of Addie Lavee. I think I'm going to be doing updates every 100 pages or so, just so I can kind of like more consistently update you with how I'm feeling about this book. At the moment, I don't really have any strong feelings towards it. It's quite a slow paced book and it's a long book, which isn't usually a combo that I go for, but I knew that was going to be slow paced before going into it, so hopefully I'm not just doomed myself from the start with this one. So what's happened so far is that I guess like the world has been established, so we know how and why Addie made this like deal with the devil, and the first part of the book kind of switched between New York in March 2014 and like July in France around like the 1700s, and we know kind of like the rules and limitations of this like deal and like the curse that's been placed on Addie. The fact that literally as soon as somebody turns around from her, they will forget her instantly. And right at the end of part 1, there was this guy in the bookstore called Henry who remembered her. She tried to steal a book from the store because people like forget her, she can get away with stealing stuff basically, but he didn't. So that's interesting. In part 2, which we're on now, I believe it switched to his point of view, which I wasn't expecting and took me a while to get my head around it, because I thought we were still like seeing things from Addie's point of view, and she was kind of just like looking into the bookshop that Henry works at. So yeah, like I said, I don't have any strong feelings yet, but the writing is really, really good. So I will update you soon. I'm now 225 pages into The Invisible Life of Addie Lavee. Addie had met a guy called Henry in New York, and he's remembered her. He's the only person in like hundreds and hundreds of years who's remembered her, and we've just gone on a little date, and we're still switching back and forth between New York in 2014 and France in around July in like the 1700s. I'm still unsure like what the purpose is of switching between the two different points in time. Like, I wonder if it's going to be linked in some way, or maybe there is some other significance to doing that. But yeah, currently about 40% in. Currently, I'd say it's like a 3.5 star rating. It's definitely more of like a character driven story, which is something that I do usually like. There isn't a whole lot of plot to this, but yeah, I'll check back in when I get to like the 300 page mark. I think I forgot to do an update at the 300 page mark, but I'm now currently on page 436, so I'm just over 100 pages from the end. At about the 300 page mark, we found out something about Henry. No spoilers of what it is, but something was revealed about him. We are like getting towards the end of the book. Obviously, Henry and Addie's relationship has like grown and developed and stuff. I'm very curious to see how this is going to be wrapped up. I've heard there is a bit of a plot twist at the end, and a lot of people cry at the ending. I do have like a bit of a theory of what the plot twist is going to be, but I might be wrong about that, as it's quite complex. I do like Henry's character a lot. I can kind of relate to him on like the things that he's feeling. I'd say at the moment, with about 100 pages left, this book for me is like a 3.5 star rating, maybe like a 3.75. What I end up rating this book is all gonna lie on the ending. So yeah, I'll get back to you once I finish the book, which will hopefully be by the end of the day or early tomorrow. So last night I finished reading The Invisible Life of Addie Lavee. I'm going to be giving this book a 3.75 star rating. Like I said, I was feeling like this was a 3.5 star for most of this book, but the ending was really strong and emotional, so that kind of like pulled it up a bit for me, but obviously not enough to give it like a 4 star or something like that. Yeah, people were right, the ending was really emotional. You know, like the feeling of when you feel like you're gonna cry, you get like the lump in your throat, your eyes get all hot and stuff. I felt like that, but alas, no tears came out of my eye sockets. So this book did have elements I liked. So it was character driven, there's not a lot of plot to it, the writing was great, the characters were relatable and intriguing, but like I've said throughout this whole vlog, I just felt pretty neutral towards it, which is a shame. I don't know why in particular I wasn't super engaged in the story. Maybe it was the slow pace and the length, which are two things I don't usually go for in books, but I knew like that was the case before going into this book, so I don't know whether I just doomed myself from the start. Like I said in the intro, I have seen a couple of reviews criticising this book for being quite very like white and Eurocentric, and I do have to agree with that. I guess it's kind of one of those things that once you're made aware of it, it's hard to not notice, but I think it's important to, especially as a white person, to take into consideration the critiques that people of colour have about this book, especially when it is very much related to race, and it's things that like you might not always notice or automatically be aware of. I could perhaps understand the limitations of like a historical character from mainland Europe travelling the world, but like this is a fantasy book, so the author could have made up anything. Addie has been alive for like over 300 years, and the only places she ever travelled was Europe and North America, and also within 300 years the only languages she learned were European ones. I don't know, I just found that a bit weird, especially when like Mandarin Chinese is actually the most spoken language in the world, and I don't know, that's just a bit weird in my opinion. But yeah, overall this book definitely isn't bad. I'm not sure if I can say whether this book is like worth the hype or not, but I guess I can to some degree understand where the 5-star reviews are coming from, because my rating is basically just based on the fact that I wasn't super emotionally connected to what was happening, even though I was like connected to the characters, and the writing was probably one of my favourite bits of the book, so I would very much be willing to read from V.E. Schwab in the future. I actually think it was quite a good pairing for me reading like Addie, Lavee and the Midnight Library in this vlog, because they both actually had kind of similar themes. Addie, Lavee did touch on mental health a little bit, as well as the idea of like discovering like what your life purpose is, being important, being valued, and being cared for by other people. I have genuinely enjoyed reading these books, even though I gave them like quite different ratings, especially with Addie, Lavee, with like the amount of hype this book is. It's good to have like a proper opinion on it, I guess. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you've read The Midnight Library or Addie, Lavee, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. In the description box I have links to all of my social media, and feel free to subscribe to my channel as well. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!